Think for a second about um, how much time you spend consuming stories.
Oh, it's a lot.
Right. Whether you're binge watching a meticulously crafted television series, tearing through a novel, or just eagerly listening to a friend share some highly detailed workplace gossip. Human beings have this seemingly bottomless, uncontrollable craving for a good narrative.
We're absolutely wired for it.
Exactly. Our brains demand narrative structure to make sense of the world. But what if that very same craving, that biological instinct to lose ourselves in a fictional world or dramatic tale, what if that could actually be the exact mechanism used to achieve total spiritual liberation?
I mean, it requires a profound shift in how we perceive entertainment, because instead of viewing our love for stories as a mere distraction or, a coping mechanism or just a way to pass the time on a Sunday afternoon, certain ancient traditions view that narrative hunger as a highly potent, hackable tool.
A hackable tool. I love that phrasing.
Yeah, and today our mission is to explore exactly how ancient Indian spiritual traditions have engineered narrative, drama, and performance to basically bypass our intellectual defenses and awaken the human soul.
And we have an incredibly diverse stack of sources to pull from today to help you decipher this. First, we're looking at an excerpt from the Ramayana, which is this uh, massive ancient epic origin story detailing the birth and the early triumphs of the divine hero Rama.
The scale of it is just staggering.
It really is. And then we're going to pivot to something that feels completely different on the surface, which is a collection of modern Krishna-conscious play scripts.
Right.
These are essentially street theater performances and quick parables designed to deliver profound philosophical truths with an absolute punch to people just walking down a city sidewalk.
Mm.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the epic scale.
The epic scale is the perfect foundation because it sets the massive cosmological philosophy that the modern street theater later distills into those bite-sized lessons. If we look at the Ramayana excerpt, the architecture of the story itself is actually designed to mirror the structure of human consciousness.
Let's set the scene for the listener because the source material paints a very specific picture. We are in the ancient city of Kosala.
Beautiful place.
It's described as this majestic, almost utopian place with grand royal highways, abundant wealth, and it's ruled by King Dasratha of the powerful Ikshvaku dynasty. The king is highly intelligent, he has the best ministers, fame, and 3 queens.
Queen Kausalya, Queen Sumitra, and Queen Kaikeyi.
Yes, but he has one heartbreaking problem that threatens to unravel absolutely everything. He has no heir to take over the kingdom.
And in the context of an ancient Vedic civilization, a king lacking an heir is not simply a personal tragedy or, a political inconvenience.
It's bigger than that.
Much bigger. It represents a rupture in the cosmic order itself. The king is viewed as the tether between the divine realm and the earthly realm. So without a successor, the structural integrity of the entire society is at risk.
So his ministers step in?
Right. They propose an ancient, highly complex Vedic solution, the Ashwamedha Yagna, which is a grand horse sacrifice. But the ritual alone isn't enough. They must invite a very specific ascetic to preside over it.
A sage named Rishyasringa.
Exactly.
And the details about Rishyasringa in the source are fascinating. He's this isolated forest sage who, according to the text, had never even seen worldly pleasures, or women, or the trappings of a city since the day he was born.
Completely secluded.
He was entirely absorbed in the study of Vedic scriptures. Why does the ritual require someone with that specific extreme level of isolation?
It comes down to the mechanics of spiritual energy in Vedic philosophy. Purity is treated almost like a highly volatile, powerful element.
Like a resource.
Yes. Bringing an ascetic of that absolute unblemished purity into a politically complex kingdom brings unparalleled auspiciousness. His presence acts as the energetic catalyst for the ritual. Because his consciousness is completely untainted by material desires, his intercession actually works.
And the ritual is a massive success.
It is. The queens become pregnant, resulting in the birth of 4 brothers across the 3 queens. Kausalya gives birth to Rama, Sumitra has twins Lakshmana, and Shatruna and Kaikeyi gives birth to Bharata.
The source describes the whole city of Ayodhya just erupting in joy. Fast forward a bit, and these kids are growing up. They're mastering archery, taming elephants. Rama and Lakshmana become inseparable.
Right.
But while reading through this, I noticed the text highlights one seemingly insignificant incident from their youth. Rama is playing, and he uses a stone to strike a water pot being carried by a hunchback maidservant. It feels so out of place in a story about divine heroes. Why even include that?
That tiny detail is a masterclass in narrative architecture. That maid belongs to Queen Kaikeyi. She is furious. She tells Rama he's arrogant and that he will repent for this action.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and for an audience familiar with the broader epic, they know this isn't just a childhood prank. It's the planting of a karmic seed. That seemingly minor slight generates a deep resentment in the maid, which will eventually lead her to manipulate the queen.
Which ultimately alters the course of the entire kingdom and forces Rama into exile.
Exactly. It teaches the listener that in the material world, every single action, no matter how small, has compounding, inescapable consequences.
But before they can even assume the throne and deal with those consequences, their lives are disrupted. The formidable sage Vishwamitra arrives at the palace.
A very intense figure.
Very. He demands that King Dasaratha hand over young Rama and Lakshmana to come out into the dangerous forest to fight off terrible demons who are disrupting the sage's sacred rituals. Dasaratha is terrified, but Rama steps up. And as soon as they enter the forest, Vishwamitra gives them something very specific.
What's fascinating here is the transfer of highly specialized knowledge. Vishwamitra doesn't just throw these young, untested princes into a war zone. He teaches them the Bala and Atibala mantras.
Reading about these mantras felt like reading about ancient cheat codes.
That's a great way to put it.
The source says that once they learn them, they are completely protected against tiredness, fever, and physical exhaustion. Even if demons attack them while they're sleeping, they cannot be harmed. It sounds like overriding biological hardware.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. It highlights a recurring theme in these traditions. Spiritual and physical empowerment doesn't come from lifting heavier weights or purely physical training. It comes through the reception of divine sound.
Mantras as technology.
Sonic technology passed down from a qualified master that literally alters the physiological and spiritual state of the receiver. It prepares Rama for his first real test, which is a terrifying demoness named Tataka.
Her backstory is pretty tragic. She wasn't born a monster throwing boulders and terrorizing sages.
No, she was originally a beautiful girl, but after her son insulted the sage Agastya, she was cursed, turning into this ferocious, cannibalistic entity.
But Rama, utilizing his training and the mantras, shatters her boulder with a single arrow and strikes her down, restoring peace to the forest.
Which perfectly positions him for the next major event. Moving from the battlefield to a challenge of divine qualification in the kingdom of Mithila. King Janaka is hosting a challenge involving a massive, impossibly heavy bow that originally belonged to Lord Shiva.
And whoever can lift it gets to marry his daughter, Sita.
And Sita's origin is crucial here. She wasn't born in a biological sense. Janaka found her in a furrow while plowing the earth.
Born directly from the planet itself.
Right, representing the ultimate pure feminine divine, an avatar of the goddess Lakshmi. The kings and princes of the world are terrified to even approach Shiva's bow.
But Rama casually walks up, lifts it effortlessly, and actually breaks it while trying to string it.
Because lifting the bow isn't a test of muscle, it's a test of cosmological qualification. By breaking it, Rama proves his divine nature. The moment he and Sita lock eyes, there is an instant, mesmerizing recognition of their eternal connection.
It culminates in a massive, joyous mass wedding for all four brothers. It's the ultimate, epic, happily ever after moment. But I want to pivot here because the contrast in our sources is pretty jarring.
It is quite a shift.
We just dissected this grand, ancient, cosmologically heavy epic. Our second source is a modern collection of play scripts used by the Hare Krishna movement. We're talking about street theater, simple props, and quick skits on modern city corners. Why take these massive philosophies and perform them on a sidewalk?
It is a highly deliberate, almost psychological spiritual strategy laid out by the founder of the movement, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The philosophy goes right back to the human condition you mentioned at the start of our deep dive.
The craving for stories.
Exactly. People have an inherent, uncontrollable inclination to consume fiction, to watch dramas, to get emotionally invested in mundane love stories. Prabhupada's insight was revolutionary in its simplicity. Do not attempt to violently suppress that desire. Redirect it.
By taking that exact same tendency, that hunger to lose ourselves in a story, and transferring it toward hearing the pastimes of the Lord. The source explicitly claims that hearing these divine stories cleanses the material contamination from the heart.
It acts as a Trojan horse. You think you're just watching an entertaining street play, but the narrative is engineered to wash away the dust accumulated from material life. It utilizes a material instinct for a spiritual outcome.
Wait, let me push back on that. Utilizing a material instinct for a spiritual outcome? Isn't that a massive contradiction to the idea of extreme asceticism we saw with the forest sage, Rishyasringa, earlier? He had to avoid the material world entirely to be pure.
It seems contradictory until you understand the concept of yukta vairagya, which means using material things in the service of the divine rather than artificially rejecting them. You can't expect a modern person walking down a street in New York or London to suddenly become a forest ascetic,
That's right.
but you can capture their attention with the play. However, there is a very strict rule for how this is delivered to ensure the spiritual potency isn't lost.
I noticed that in the source. Prabhupada insisted that absolutely only pure devotees should act in these plays. You could have a highly trained, award-winning professional actor, but if they lack personal devotion in their private life, the performance is considered spiritually dead.
Because in this tradition, they aren't just putting on a theatrical show, they are transmitting a spiritual reality. That transmission requires a clear channel. A professional actor might deliver a technically perfect performance, but if their consciousness is entangled in material desires, they cannot transfer spiritual energy to the audience.
The purity of the messenger is the actual medium. That brings us perfectly to the mechanics of the street theater itself. They aren't usually acting out massive epics with hundreds of characters on the street. They rely heavily on quick, sharp parables. I'd love for you to walk us through a couple of them, because they use this brilliant, dark humor to explain complex Vedic philosophy. What is the story of the drowning man?
Oh, this one is great. Picture a man thrashing in a dark lake, screaming for his life. A social worker spots him, rushes to the edge, dramatically strips off his shoes, dives in, and swings out to the man. After a chaotic struggle, the social worker swims proudly back to shore, exhausted, yelling to the drowning man's wife, "I saved him!"
What he didn't.
No. When he holds up his prize, it's just the drowning man's coat.
Oh.
The man himself sank to the bottom. The wife wails at him, "You fool, you didn't save Marvin, you just saved his coat."
It's such a morbidly funny image, but it pairs so seamlessly with another story from the sources, the poem called Bird in the Cage.
Right. The poem describes a woman who purchases an exquisite royal antique cage crafted from jade and ivory. She becomes completely obsessed with the object itself.
She polishes the gold bars, sews velvet curtains for it.
She even invites all her friends over for a party just to show it off. But she is so hyper-fixated on polishing the cage that she entirely forgets to feed the bird living inside. Naturally, the bird starves to death while she's busy admiring the gold.
The imagery is heartbreaking. The bird is crying out for food, and she just keeps polishing. But practically speaking, connecting this to your life as a listener, the coat and the cage represent the temporary physical body. The drowning man and the starving bird represent the eternal spirit soul.
Exactly. The critique is that society is obsessed with polishing the cage while the soul starves.
But we still have to pay rent, go to the doctor, and maintain our physical bodies. How do these modern street plays suggest we balance taking care of the cage without completely neglecting the bird?
The plays do not suggest you abandon the body or stop paying rent. They're critiquing the proportion of the energy expenditure and our ultimate identification. If you spend 99% of your life's energy pursuing bodily comforts, wealth, and status, you are the social worker saving the coat while the man drowns.
Wow.
The goal is to maintain the cage only as a means to facilitate the nourishment of the bird.
That really reframes the daily grind. And they hit a similar theme regarding the arrogance of modern advancement in the play called The Scholar and the Boatman. Can you break that one down?
Sure, you have an incredibly arrogant academic scholar sitting in a small boat crossing a wide, turbulent river. He spends the journey grilling the uneducated boatman. He asks, "Have you studied statistics and probability?" The boatman shakes his head no. The scholar scoffs, "You've wasted 25% of your life."
So condescending.
Then he asks about meteorology and physics to forecast wind velocity. The boatman has no idea. The scholar arrogantly declares, "You've wasted 75% of your life."
The ultimate academic superiority complex.
Precisely. But then a massive storm suddenly rolls in. The boat capsizes, throwing them both into the raging river. The boatman yells over the crashing waves, "Sir, we have to swim." And the scholar panics, screaming, "I can't swim."
And the punchline.
The boatman simply replies, "Then it looks as though you've wasted 100% of your life."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, consider the implications there for modern society. Western technological and academic science is incredibly adept at analyzing the world. It makes the voyage of life very comfortable while you're sitting in the boat.
It does.
But Eastern spiritual science, actually knowing who you are beyond the intellect and the physical form, is the only thing that teaches you how to survive the crossing, when the boat inevitably tips over at the moment of death.
Knowing the statistical probability of a storm is entirely useless if you never learned how to swim.
Speaking of things that drag us underwater, the plays also tackle how easily human beings get pulled down by their own endless desires. There is a play called The Yogi's Dilemma that outlines the psychological profiling of desire. How does that escalation happen in the story?
It starts with a powerful, meditating yogi living in the forest. He has renounced everything in the world. He owns literally 2 pairs of underwear and nothing else. But a rat keeps emerging from the brush to steal his underwear while it's drying on a rock. To protect his only possession, the yogi uses his mystic power to conjure a cat to chase away the rat.
Which seems like a logical, isolated solution.
It is the illusion of the final purchase that we all fall for, because now the cat is meowing, it requires milk, so the yogi conjures a cow to provide the milk.
But the cow requires milking and tending.
Right. So he conjures a wife to milk the cow, to feed the cat, to chase the rat, to protect the underwear.
It just keeps going.
But the wife becomes lonely in the forest. She demands a baby. He conjures a child. The child whines for a pet, so he conjures a dog. The wife starts complaining that they live in a dirt hut, and she wants a better house and new clothes. Eventually, the once peaceful yogi is surrounded by screaming animals and a demanding family.
Over a pair of underwear.
In a fit of misery, he screams Om Namo Scram and banishes them all, realizing that material life is an endless, entangling web.
Every time we think one more possession or one more promotion will bring us peace, it actually just creates a new material dependency and more anxiety to maintain it.
And the sources go even further to deconstruct what it is we're actually desiring. There's a visceral warning about the illusion of physical attraction in a play called Liquid Beauty.
I have to warn you, listener, the details of this next one are a bit jarring, but it makes an unforgettable philosophical point.
A vain, wealthy man relentlessly pursues a highly sought-after, beautiful woman. Finally, she agrees to see him, but tells him he must wait exactly 1 week. During that week, she consumes powerful purgatives and laxatives. She violently purges her body, storing all of her bodily waste, the vomit, the mucus, the excrement, in a series of pots. When the wealthy man returns a week later, she answers the door looking completely emaciated, haggard, and ugly. The man is repulsed and asks where the beautiful woman went. She presents the foul-smelling pox to him and says, "My beauty is preserved. Here it is. Enjoy it."
It is such a shocking graphic image. But breaking down the aha moment here, what she is demonstrating is that the physical components of the human body, the literal flesh and fluids we idolize and obsess over, are actually foul when separated from the life force.
Exactly.
The true source of beauty isn't the physical packaging. It's the spirit soul within that animates the body. When we lust after someone purely physically, we're admiring a temporary bag of elements that will eventually decay.
It shatters the illusion of the flesh completely. It forces the audience to confront the reality of what they are actually chasing.
So what does this all mean? If our desires entangle us and our physical attractions are illusions, how do we escape the cycle? The final play from our stack, The King and the Genie, offers the ultimate practical solution. What's the dilemma in this one?
A king purchases a dusty old lamp. He rubs it, and a terrifying genie emerges. But this genie does not simply grant 3 wishes and vanish. The genie holds a sword to the king's throat and roars, "You must keep me engaged or I will kill you."
The king panics.
He commands the genie to clean every window in the massive city. The genie returns in a flash, "Done. Command me or die." The king tells him to pave all the royal rows with solid gold. The genie finishes instantly. The king tells him to paint every single leaf on every tree in the kingdom, done in seconds. The king is paralyzed with terror because he's running out of tasks.
The allegory here is incredibly precise. The genie is the human mind.
Exactly. The human mind is faster than light, and it's a relentless churning machine. If you do not actively engage the mind with a higher purpose, it doesn't just sit quietly on standby, it turns on you.
It attacks.
An uncontrolled mind will drag you into severe anxiety, destructive habits, and spiritual death. It has the capacity to be your greatest asset or your absolute worst enemy.
So how does the king survive? He gets advice from a spiritual devotee who gives him a task that can never be finished, no matter how fast the genie works. The king commands the genie to continuously chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra,
which is the Sanskrit mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
What is the actual mechanism there? Why does that specific task pacify the genie?
The philosophy teaches that the glories of the divine are infinite. Therefore, chanting the Maha Mantra is a task that can never be completed. Phonetically and vibrationally, the repetition of these specific spiritual sound frequencies occupies the mind's processing power.
You give it a job it can't finish.
Right. You cannot simply command the mind to stop thinking. You must give it a superior, eternal engagement. By continuously chanting, the genie the mind is finally pacified and kept positively engaged forever.
What an incredible journey through these texts. We started with the epic cosmological scale of the Ramayana, watching Rama qualify for divine union by effortlessly breaking Lord Shiva's bow and utilizing mantras as ancient spiritual technology.
And we ended on the modern street level.
Analyzing the psychological profiling of a yogi guarding his underwear and a terrified king trying to outrun the genie of his own mind.
But the underlying directive across millennia, whether delivered in an ancient Sanskrit epic or a modern street play, remains exactly the same. Wake up to the spiritual reality. Stop spending your entire existence polishing the jade cage, and learn how to swim before the boat inevitably capsizes.
It makes me think of one last short parable from the sources called The Wrong Bank Account. A man steadily deposits money every single week into a bank for 40 years. He sacrifices time with his family, works grueling double shifts, and obsesses over his future retirement.
A familiar story.
But when he finally goes to withdraw his life savings as a frail old man, he discovers the bank teller was embezzling the funds. And worse, he had been depositing his life's energy into the wrong account number the entire time. He drops dead of a heart attack on the spot.
It is the ultimate tragedy of investing your entire life's energy into temporary material goals that are completely wiped out at the moment of death.
In a modern world where you and I are facing unprecedented information overload, constantly bombarded by advertisements pushing endless material pursuits, these ancient stories act as a sharp, necessary shortcut.
They absolutely do.
They bypass our intellect and force us to reevaluate what truly matters before we reach the end of our own narrative.
They demand that we look critically at where we're depositing our energy. So building on everything we've explored today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Go for it.
Think about the bird in the cage. When you look at your own daily routine, your diet, your exercise, your career, how much of your day is spent meticulously polishing the gold on your cage? And what exactly are you feeding the bird?
That is definitely a question to sit with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of spiritual storytelling. We hope it gave you some profound insights to carry with you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, and keep exploring.